Last video tutorial on approaching the Framework U.S. History Regents exam is addressing the set number 2 short essay on the reliability of document 2. It is always going to be document 2. We will come back to this. This is the very last thing that you should be working on the day of the exam. You should do the multiple choice first, then skip to the civic literacy essay, then move back to the short essay sections, the two different sets. You will at this point have already done the relationship of the documents, and then the very last thing you'll be doing is this reliability of document 2. So if you look at the assignment page, much like set number 1, there are 2 bullet points that you need to address. However, they are slightly different. The first one's the same, historical context, but then analyze document 2 and explain how audience, purpose, bias, or point of view affects this document's use as a reliable source of evidence. So, is document 2 a reliable source of historical information? That is your only goal for this essay assignment. Much like the short essay on the relationship of the documents, you are always going to see the same assignment page. This is never going to look any different regardless of the topic and the documents that are provided to you. So, knowing that, how are you going to address historical context, bullet 1, and reliability of document 2? Going back to the generic outline, you would want to address the historical context in your first paragraph. That means, remember what context means, what's going on at the time. You can use outside info that you remember from class, and you can use any document info. Then in your second paragraph, you want to address the reliability of Doc 2. Now, all caps, only Doc 2. You are not addressing anything about the reliability of the first document. That doesn't mean you can't mention the first document. Maybe you'll mention that as doc info in the historical context. But you are only addressing the reliability of the second document. So you're addressing that question. Is it reliable? And even more importantly, why? Or why not? So in general, this generic outline right here is going to be precisely how you approach the reliability of document 2 short essay, set number 2 on the exam. Last thing you'll be doing the day of the exam. So again, you have historical context, reliability based on one of these 4 elements. You do not want to be talking about multiple. You only want to choose one of these 4 elements. So let's analyze the documents that are provided to us on your practice exam. And to start with, using the SQUID process, let's source both documents. First is the South Carolina Ordinance of Secession in December of 1860. The second, Collected Works of Abraham Lincoln, Volume 4. Okay, so this is lots of different documents that come from either speeches or writings of Abraham Lincoln. So one is secession, which we know led to the Civil War. We also know that Abraham Lincoln is president during the Civil War. This immediately tells us what our historical context paragraph is going to be about. So in our own planning page, we can address the topic of that first paragraph as the Civil War. Looking back, we also see how reliable is Abraham Lincoln's document. So is Lincoln reliable? So we haven't even read the documents yet, and we know that this is the approach that we're going to have to take. So let's actually go through and read through these 2 documents and see what we can use to our advantage in the essay. Document 1, South Carolina Ordinance of Secession. On the 4th March next, this party, they're referring to the Republican Party, will take possession of the government. It has announced that the South shall be excluded from the common, which is national territory, that the judicial tribunals shall be made sectional, and that a war must be waged against slavery until it shall cease throughout the United States. The guarantees of the Constitution will then no longer exist. The equal rights of the states will be lost. The slaveholding states will no longer have the power of self-government or self-protection, and the federal government will have become their enemy. We, therefore, the people of South Carolina, by our delegates in convention assembled, appealing to the supreme judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, have solemnly declared that the union heretofore existing between the state and the other states of North America is dissolved. So the union is dissolved. And that the state of South Carolina has resumed her position among the nations of the world as a separate and independent state, with full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And we know this led to the fighting of the Civil War. So now let's analyze document 2. Oh, great. So this, we know, is Lincoln's first inaugural address on March 4th, 1861. Plainly, the central idea of secession is the essence of anarchy. So he's comparing secession to anarchy. A majority held in restraint by constitutional checks and limitations, and always changing easily, with deliberate changes of popular opinions and sentiments, is the only true sovereign of a free people. Whoever rejects it does, of necessity, fly to anarchy or to despotism. Unanimity is impossible. The rule of a minority, as a permanent arrangement, is wholly inadmissible. So that, rejecting the majority principle, anarchy or despotism in some form is all that is left. Why should there not be a patient confidence in the ultimate justice of the people? Is there any better or equal hope in the world? In our present differences, is either party without faith of being in the right? If the almighty ruler of nations, with his eternal truth and justice, be on your side of the north, or on yours of the south, that truth and that justice will surely prevail by the judgment of this great tribunal, the American people. In your hands, my dissatisfied fellow countrymen, and not in mine, is the momentous issue of civil war. The government will not assail you. You can have no conflict without being yourselves the aggressors. You have no oath registered in heaven to destroy the government, while I shall have the most solemn one to preserve, protect, and defend it. So there's a lot to take in here. But what can we take from either of these documents, while remembering that only document 2 is the one that we are addressing the reliability of? What can we take from this? Well, you have secession, which obviously leads to civil war. Then you have Lincoln's first inaugural address, which in this bottom portion that we have highlighted lays down the gauntlet of, hey, this is on you guys. If you start a violent conflict, I am going to be forced to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. That is in the oath that the President of the United States takes. So, going back to our outline, we have that and this is outside information, in November of 1860, Lincoln is elected president. Election day is always in November. Then, in December 1860, South Carolina secedes. They are the first state to do so. If you remember, look at a map of states, and South Carolina is the single most dependent on slavery. So it makes sense that they would be the first that were most eager to secede. If you remember, other Deep South states follow along. It isn't until April of 1861 that you have the firing on Fort Sumter. It's only then that the hesitant Upper South states join the Confederacy. So quite a bit of this is outside information. How much of it you would remember on the day of the test, not really sure, but you can round out this first body paragraph about the Civil War with any and all information about the outbreak of war that you do remember. Because the most important thing is your second paragraph that is going to address, is Lincoln reliable? Well, first you want to state, is he reliable? My gut says he is. He's remembered as one of our greatest presidents. So you could say something like, history remembers Lincoln as one of our greatest presidents ever. So the American people remember him as one of the greatest. And who is his audience? Going back to the assignment page, audience is one of our options here. So to say, with the American people as his audience, I'm going to put that in all caps. Won't necessarily do that in my essay, but with the American people as his audience, he was convincing. How do we know that? He successfully led the nation through the Civil War. Boom. There's your short essay on the reliability of Lincoln's inaugural address. Why is Lincoln reliable? I'm going to highlight here. Why is he reliable? Because he is remembered as one of our greatest ever presidents, and with the American people as his audience, he was obviously very convincing, while also providing plenty of outside information about the Civil War and the historical context of the time in the first paragraph. This right here is a rock-solid essay. If you have any questions about this, come see me in class. Otherwise, good luck on the exam.